Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammang sangham namasami. Dear friends, we are continuing our sutta study on this particular sutta, which is called Nourishing in Bhante Sujata's translation. It's number 46.51 in the Connected Discourses. We have come down to the part about nourishing the factors of awakening, and in particular to the factor called tranquility. I'm sorry that the sutta itself may not help us very much. Just give me 1 minute. The sutta says, what fuels the arising of the awakening factor of tranquility, or when it has arisen, fully develops it. There is tranquility of the body and of the mind. Frequent rational application of mind to that. You could say wise reflection. This is yoniso manasikara. And then bahulika is again and again. Frequent yoniso manasikara fuels the arising of the awakening factor of tranquility. So let's consider what we might mean by the tranquility of the body and tranquility of the mind. One idea has to do with this whole sequence of the factors of awakening. And it specifically, it says in several places, when the mind is full of rapture, the body becomes tranquil. That statement is mentioned in the Pottapada Sutta, number 9 in the Digha Nikaya, and in some other places. There's a profound happiness, which is got the quality of freedom or security, because it's not a happiness that depends on pleasure coming from some external source, but instead, in effect, like a happiness that comes from within. So it's a happiness that doesn't depend on anything outside of ourselves. You could say this, sometimes translated as the piti, as a joyful interest. This is something that in pop psychology, sometimes I think they talk about what's called flow, when a person is engaged in some activity and they become fully engaged and free from any distraction. So it's starting to have that quality of the unification of the mind, or non-distraction. So when this happens, the muscles in the body relax. A person will begin to feel very comfortable at the body level, and that body comfort supports a mental equilibrium. That's one way of putting it. In the elsewhere, it's said that, or I've heard, I don't know if it's written in the sutras, that piety can be, I think this must be in the Visuddhimagga, piety can be like too exciting. A person could experience piety as being like this oceanic, overwhelming, being carried away, or being almost overwhelmed by waves of this sense of piety. But then the mind gets bored with the amount of excitement, or the amount of motion, the agitation associated with that kind of piety, and the mind then becomes like willing to let go of the excitement and becomes more calm and more settled. And then this sort of calmed down version of piti is associated with passaddhi. I do think that it's very useful to think in terms of the Upanishad Sutta. Let me see if I can pull up one of the versions of the Upanishad Sutta. So in this case, Upanishad is sometimes called transcendental dependent origination, and it's the sequence of factors, one leading to the other, leading towards awakening. I should have opened this up before we started the meeting, but I didn't open it. So I'm waiting for the computer to be willing to open it. Come on. The Upanishad Sutta sometimes starts with faith, and sometimes it starts with some aspect of sila and leading to non-regret. And then the proximate, either non-regret or faith, is the proximate cause for joy, pamoja. Pamoja is the proximate cause for piety. And then piety is the proximate cause for passaddhi. Passaddhi is the proximate cause for immersion or samadhi. Immersion is the proximate cause for true knowledge and vision, which is the proximate cause for disillusionment and dispassion, nibbida and viraga. And disillusion and dispassion is the proximate cause for the knowledge and vision of freedom. So this is definitely the sequence of, it's like the ladder, one step after another. And following this sequence, one is on the way to the ultimate attainment of the knowledge of vision and freedom. And so then, if you wanted to know what is the nourishment for this tranquility, the nourishment is going to be either ethics, sila, or faith or confidence, saddha. And subsequent to that, pamoja or gladness, knowing how to gladden the mind, and arising from that, piety, which is in particular the version of, or the joyful interest, which is a mental factor, definitely not part of pleasure, but which is connected with having a liberation or a seclusion from the hindrances. So I think this is what I have to say about passaddhi, and I'm happy to invite our listeners here to mention what you know from your experience or what you've heard from great teachers, especially as the nourishment for the bodily nourishment of tranquility and the mental nourishment of tranquility. Or any questions you might have so far. I particularly am delighted to welcome the Aranya Bodhi Hermitage group who has joined us here tonight. Daimon.
Hi, I found these 7 things listed somewhere related to what we're studying. Was wondering if you could comment on these as being supportive of tranquility.
Mm-hmm. I see them here in your
chat. Yeah. I put it in the chat, yeah.
Using superior food, living in a good climate, maintaining a pleasant posture, keeping to the middle, avoidance of violent persons, cultivation of persons tranquil in body, and resoluteness upon that tranquility. This, I'm not sure of your source, but it sounds like Visuddhimagga to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So, it is certainly true that some of these like a sort of materialistic factors can be a contributor to tranquility, especially at the beginning. So if one is living in the midst of a disaster, if you don't already have a good practice and know-how and have the previous experience of obtaining tranquility, it could even be impossible to learn how to develop tranquility while you're living in a disaster zone. I know that when I was just getting started in the Dhamma, I had a job that was it was basically a right livelihood in the sense that I was helping people, but at the same time, my boss was asking me to do some things that I began to feel was unethical, and the culture of that shop was having our competitors seen as an enemy, and like a culture of disparaging and making fun of our competitors, and so things like that just began to feel like just like dirty to me. I was just a brand new baby Buddhist, just beginning, and I did resign from that position because even though it could have been possible to develop, they say like grow where you're planted, and so in the midst of the adverse circumstance to still be able to develop in the Dhamma, but I felt I couldn't, and so I had to remove myself from those bad companions in order to make progress on the path. So in these ways, finding a circumstance for practice which is clean and moderate and peaceful certainly helps. Depending on a person's temperament, they say that let's suppose a person has a pleasure-seeking, a greedy temperament. They would put him into a very simple Spartan kind of a meditation space so that they wouldn't be having the things in the environment feeding their greedy qualities, but instead being in a very simplified Spartan kind of environment, they would have to see within themselves the greedy qualities because the contrast or something like that. They can't blame it on, say, I'm just greedy because of the beautiful and luxurious room that they put me in. They would see that I'm just greedy because it's in my mind, and so they get to work on it that way. So yes, that's okay. This what's called a resolution upon that tranquility. So if you know persons who have that, who have cultivated, who are successful, who have possessed tranquility, even who are able to sustain their tranquility in the midst of disaster, then just seeing them can help one to recognize what that quality is. And having recognized that quality, it could be developed. It's like what you pay attention to becomes the inclination of the heart. So if you find tranquility in another person, or you find it in yourself, and you pay attention to it, that's what I take to be this resoluteness upon tranquility, by paying attention to the quality that you want to develop that causes that quality to develop. Other comments about the nutriment for tranquility? Iti, asadi, and samadhi are all somewhat associated with sama samadhi, or the four jhanas. And the previous qualities of sati, mindfulness, investigation, and energy, you could say are associated with mindfulness. The next factor is indeed the factor of samadhi. What fuels the arising of the awakening factor of immersion, or when it has arisen, fully develops it? This is Bhante Sujata's translation for samadhi, which elsewhere is very often translated as concentration. And the answer, again, not very explanatory here. There are things that are the foundation of serenity. That's called samatha, and freedom from distraction. A frequent rational application of mind to them fuels the arising of the awakening factor of immersion. So serenity is the Pali word samatha. And freedom from distraction is abhyaga. One of the frequent chanting that's done is ahangavera homi, abhyapajo homi. That abhyapajo, that's that ill will, the dislike. It's kind of a visceral reaction of repulsion towards something that's dislikable. And then having cut the root so that visceral reactivity is not arising. That's my understanding of that. I'm not sure how Bhante Sujato gets freedom from distraction from abhyaga nimitta. Avyaga is given in the dictionary as being distracted, confused, or bewildered. And then Avyaga is given as not bewildered and not confused. So in that case, what's being referred to is clarity. I misspoke earlier. When I spoke of Avyapadya, that's a different root. So the what's called samadhi or concentration here is associated with clarity, and shamatha, which is that stillness which is arising from non-desire. I want to point out to everyone's attention an article which it just came to my attention very recently, like last night. So I haven't fully digested it. This is an article by Analio called "The Role of Absorption for Entering the Stream." And it was published in the Journal of Buddhist Studies last year. Analio points out that it's very, very common in the suttas where samma samadhi is made the equivalent of the four jhanas. So much so that many of the modern Theravada teachers have that understanding, and therefore come to the conclusion that in order to obtain stream entry, one needs to have the four jhanas. What Anolio is one of his specialties is doing a comparison between the Theravada text and the parallel text in the Chinese tradition and in the other partial Sanskrit traditions. And he finds that these references equating samma samadhi, or right concentration, with the four jhanas, when you go over to the parallel text, you never see the four jhanas mentioned. You only see mentioned unification of mind. And then Analio finds a few other cases where even in the Theravada suttas, that when they talk about samadhi, it doesn't make sense to think of it as jhana. So here's a discourse where it says that while you are being sawn, having your limbs sawn off by robbers, and you have unification of mind and samadhi, even while you're getting your limbs cut off. And Analio thinks it's probably they're not doing full jhana meditation at that time. On another case, it said that contemplating the impermanent nature of the five aggregates is one of the five modes of jhana. And so one of the five modes of cultivating samadhi. And so you wouldn't be doing that contemplation while you're in jhana meditation. And then in another reference, it gives 5 different occasions for the breakthrough to liberation. 4 of them are related to either hearing the teaching or giving the teaching. It says, or reciting the teaching, reflecting on a teaching, it says that each of these occasions results in concentrating the mind. So you wouldn't, if you entered into jhana while you were listening to a Dhamma teaching, you wouldn't be able to hear the teaching. So what he's saying is that the samadhi, in terms of a more general sense of the absence of distraction, can be what's intended on these other occasions where you see it in our text. Or it could be that the definition of sama samadhi as being the same thing as the 4 jhanas could be something that was added later on, and it was related to some kind of a parallel made between the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 4 jhanas. I even might invite all of us to read this very interesting article, and we could discuss it at a future class after all of us have had a chance to reflect about it. So this, if this is true, like, I mean, you've heard me on many occasions say that obtaining a seclusion from the hindrances, seclusion from unwholesome states of mind, accompanied by applied thought and sustained thought, that this is what it is, entering into sama samadhi. Elsewhere in Analayo's article, he has a comment to make about samadhi in terms of the awakening factors. And his statement here is that cultivating the awakening factors leading to awakening, leading to stream entry, leading to enlightenment, ideally takes place with all 7 of the factors coexisting in the mind after they've been developed step by step or one by one. And that would mean that tranquility and concentration are coexisting with investigation. Which Analayo believes would not be happening during jhana, that investigation would not be happening during jhana. And furthermore, there's a kind of a balancing aspect that mindfulness is the first foundation of the factors of awakening, and the other 6 factors fall into groups: those that are going towards being arousal, and those going towards tranquility. So the mind that tends towards sluggishness needs to develop more investigation of Dhamma, energy, and joy, and you don't want to develop more tranquility, concentration, and equanimity for the mind, which is already sluggish. So those 6 factors then are supposed to be, all of them developed and all kept in sort of a balanced relationship to each other. And the only one that you could have without limitation is the factor of mindfulness, which is always suitable, always appropriate. So then Analayo's idea there is that of the 7 factors of awakening, that mindfulness is more important than the others, and sama samadhi, we don't. It would be wrong to say that, like it was some kind of a mistake, that sama samadhi is part of the Noble Eightfold Path, and all of the factors of the Eightfold Path are essential in order to reach the goal. You have to get all of them, and all of them have to be like in the context of all the others. So you would never have sama samadhi without also having the first 7 factors all developed and all present. So then his idea is that sama samadhi is the unification of the mind, especially based on right view, and also comprehending or including the entirety of the Eightfold Path. And so it would be that that unification of mind, which would be the factor that brings one close to Nibbana, or brings one right up to the point in the Upanishad Sutta, which is leading onwards to the breakthrough and the subsequent cascade of the different factors that lead one on to full liberation and the knowledge of liberation. So this is what I have for you today about sama samadhi. Not to discourage the practice of jhanas or the appreciation of the 4 jhanas and of the 4 immaterial meditations as being useful practice for one who's still striving, and a pleasant abiding for one who has already obtained the breakthrough. And for us, I would say being like the fish in the water who only knows water and doesn't know about air. So a person who's swimming in, we live in the universe of sensual craving. That's the realm of existence into which we've been born. And essential craving, if we've been swimming in that for so long and we don't even conceive the possibility of anything else, then it's possible that the jhana and the immaterial meditations can be part of stepping away and learning at the visceral, deep intuitive level that there's something is there for us apart from this world of the senses and reactivity to the senses. So then if we think of sama samadhi in terms of this unification of the mind informed by right view and the other factors, or you could say this composure, this non-distraction, then you could say that serenity and freedom from distraction is actually almost like the definition, or the revised definition of sama samadhi that Analayo is hinting at in his article, which is just not necessarily tying it to the jhana practice, which Analayo qualifies as absorption, instead making it into something that's a factor that can be possessed all day long in all the postures, even while having one's limbs sawed off. So I invite your comments and questions about that, and I could be wrong, so if you think I'm wrong, please tell me. Okay, Damon.
Thank you, Aya. Could you explain, concentration seems to me like if you can't concentrate, you can't meditate. If you can't concentrate, if I can't concentrate, I can't be mindful. In fact, I'm not really clear on the difference between mindfulness and concentration. The colloquial use of concentration for me is very applicable in my practice because I have to concentrate on my breath in order to meditate, and I have to concentrate on what I'm doing in daily life in order to be mindful. I have to be aware. I have to concentrate. I have to watch everything. Am I missing something?
I believe that mindfulness is a more receptive state, which is able to clearly see anything that arises to our experience. So even if one is having a temper tantrum, one can become like mindful. Oh, this is what it's like when I lose my temper. And this is part of the strength of mindfulness, is that all of the phenomena that we can experience are able to be seen with mindfulness. Now, a person who's super distracted is not able to be mindful of anything. So it's like divided attention. If there's if I ask you to count backwards from 100, count back by threes, and then also to remember or recite the Eightfold Noble Path, and also to do a third task. Most people are not able to do so many multitasks at the same time, because most people are like not capable of divided attention. But in this modern world, we are continuously being subjected to more than 3 different things pulling at our attention. And because of that, people are not mindful. They're just sort of like blindly going along on automatic without awareness. And so to develop samasati, you have to have be able to choose to slow down and to just pay attention to one thing at a time. That is sort of a kind of a concentration, that you're being choiceful in where the awareness is placed. And most teachers these days kind of have concentration and mindfulness sort of going step by step, that you're doing both of them, trying to develop both of them together, because they do support each other. The concentration is a horrible translation. Samadhi is the sometimes translated as the unification of mind. So it's a state. If by concentration you mean the 4 jhanas, it's a state of experience that begins with seclusion from the hindrances, seclusion from unwholesome states of mind, and then progresses and evolves into the different things that can be experienced and known, starting from that basic point. So that's the difference.
I think I remember from a long time ago, Bhante Ji saying that there are two ways to approach like street. I don't think he said stream entry, but a real grasping of what the Buddha was teaching, and was what one was by vipassana, an investigation and understanding that, and the other way was using the jhanas. But I always thought that the jhanas were a conditioned thing that had a so like all conditioned things, they weren't permanent, or they were just a state of mind that could change. So I'm a vipassana person. But I don't know. I mean, I think it was Bhante Ji who said something like that, and I think he was trying to encourage me not to, get disheartened, just to keep investigating and trying to understand the teachings. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
There is a verse in the suttas where they speak about samatha and vipassana as being the two immediate precursors to awakening. Samatha then being calm or quietude, or freedom from craving. And then vipassana meaning insight, and so then insight defeats ignorance, and calmness defeats greed. If the ignorance falls away because of your vipassana practice, then greed cannot survive. It will be destroyed. If through calmness you eliminate greed, greed is like this great distorting factor that's throwing up a cloud of obstruction that prevents you from being able to see clearly. And when the greed drops off, then immediately one is able to see clearly and have the vipassana. So the vipassana can follow the samatha, or the samatha can follow the vipassana, or it says the two of them can come along together like an evenly matched pair of oxen, pulling the cart exactly together. So I believe that this is what we have heard from Bhante Ji, and he encourages those who have this intellectual investigating frame of mind and are not very easy to practice concentration or to be still in meditation, to not neglect samatha. And then it's less common among modern Americans, but sometimes there are people who can very, very easily go into meditation, but they don't have the tendency to investigate, or to they don't have such a natural tendency towards vipassana. And in that case, they should be encouraged to develop mindfulness, because those two factors really are going together. Is that congruent with what you remember Bhante saying?
I think so, but it's such a long time ago. But some things that he said really stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
And they pop up every once in a while, and yeah. But it was an encouragement. He was encouraging, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that tranquility is important when your mind's so distracted and all over the place. You can't make any progress. And I personally think you can't multitask. I think your consciousness and your focus can only be on one thing at a time, and you're just flipping from one to the other very rapidly. But it's not, it's not a very happy place to be, is multitasking. That's for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Richard.
Thank you. The difference between mindfulness and samadhi,
Yes.
not really a difference. That's why when one perfects equanimity in the fourth jhana, it's called purity of mindfulness. So every step on the path is fully integrated, and the next step is dependent on it, and the next step is dependent on those, and the next one, the ones below that, they're not like totally independent things. So when one gets to the sixth path factor and begins to understand the difference between the wholesome and unwholesome, especially thoughts in one's mind, and one cultivates the wholesome and lets the unwholesome fall away, that's what prepares one to start letting the mind be focused in mindfulness. And so then one starts looking at, okay, the body, right? And finishes off the body. But how is the body finished off? At the end, it says the dead body, the bones are just turned to dust and just blow away in the wind, okay? Okay, so now we've set the body aside. Then one goes, well, what's left, right? Sensation, you know, because you're not dead yet, so you're feeling sensation. So then you study sensation to the point, and you understand that, okay, these are just sensations, that's all. You know, they come and go, and okay, that's set aside. Then you look at mind states, chitta. Chitta means mind states. Okay, I'm happy 1 second, I'm sad the next, I'm depressed, I'm elated, I'm concentrated, I'm unconcentrated, right? These are different states of mind. So one learns what all these different states of mind are and starts moving towards the abhicitta, the higher states of mind. It's kind of like the wholesome and the unwholesome, and lets those other ones kind of go. And so when one has perfected oneself like that, then one looks clearly at Dhamma. The fourth one is Dhamma. Now, sometimes that's called mind object. It's not mind object. It means you start really looking at like the three characteristics of everything. You start taking the Dhamma and really seeing its application, because you kind of let go of all these things by your focus of your mind. You've let go of all the things like thinking of the body of the self as the self, thinking of sensations as the self, thinking of different mental states as the self. You kind of let go of that, and you start seeing the real implication of the Dharma and all that. And so that clarifies your mind to the state that, okay, now I can kind of start letting go of my mind, and that's how you enter into the jhanas. Okay, mind and body. You start entering into the jhana, and samatha vipassana. Samatha means to settle down, and while you're settling down your mind, you're watching that. You're watching the mind settle down. You're watching the body settle down. You're watching your breath. That's why anapanasati. First, when you sit down, you're breathing kind of hard, you know, like the person trying to spin up, you know, what do they call it? A potter trying to spin up the potter's wheel, right, and get it going and everything. But once it's going, you just need to touch it once in a while. This is old-fashioned, before they had motors or foot pedals and stuff, right? This is old Indian. You know, you just touch it once in a while. Boom, keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. And so that's the breath settling down, the body settling down, and you're watching that process so that you can repeat it. You're learning how to master your body and bring it down to tranquility, so that as you enter into the jhanas, then you're mastering each jhana, tranquilizing, you know, settling down, samatha. But you're watching it, and that's why the super jhana masters can go very quickly, you know, to this jhana, that jhana. It's not a long drawn out process because they've done so much samatha vipassana, seeing exactly what the mechanisms are. Technically, you have to go through all, but they go very rapidly, so they're said to be like kind of just jumping, Same thing. Eventually, you let go of all that and you go into the formless states. So now, as far as Bhikkhu and Alio, this idea that, and it is a doctrine that some schools have developed, that there's certain levels of meditational attainment, let's call it, which will allow you to become a sotapanna. If you study all the sutras, you'll not find a single sutta anywhere where someone was not sitting with either the Buddha or one of his disciples and having a sutta, a dialogue, and then they became sotapanna. There's no description anywhere that you're doing meditation, suddenly you become a sotapanna. And that's why it's dependent upon the words, right? The words of another. Sometimes they say the voice of another, but the actual Pali word is the words of another. You're listening to those words and they penetrate in and your mind does a revolution. Now you see, right view. Oh, now I see the universe as it really is. I didn't see it before. I was too caught up in the mana, okay? And falsely identifying with things as mine and myself and all that stuff. And boom, you break that, you see through that pattern. Now, that doesn't mean you're completely enlightened, okay? Because there's still residue. I mean, even a non-returner still has a very, very subtle residue, and that's why he doesn't become an arahant. So I'm not sure why people became attached to these views, but they're not supported in the sutta, and I believe that that's what's holding many people back from making progress and realizing what stages that they've actually met. People can actually become sotapannas and not realize it, because if you have either a lack of knowledge of what the qualities of a sotapanna is, or others have told you that that's not a sotapanna, you might not realize it because it's not magic. You have to get the full understanding, and from a technical standpoint to know, okay, there's the three factors of a sotapanna, right? The first is complete confidence in the Buddha as the enlightened teacher, right? The next is no more belief that rites and rituals can lead to enlightenment. Okay, rites and rituals may have their place, but they're not going to lead to enlightenment. And the third is this existing body, sat kaya. Sat means existing, kaya. This existing body is not the self. You can see that clearly. Okay, that doesn't mean you don't have habits, and you may not, because you haven't completely freed yourself, right? You've only just entered the door, you might say. Open is the door to the deathless, right? So you kind of like open the door and you're standing in the doorway. You haven't penetrated into the deathless very far yet, okay? But you can see the deathless. You can see the other world, all right? So that's what the rest of the training is for, is to gradually, eliminate all those things. And I'm sorry I'm speaking so long, but sometimes when I hear certain things and I just see these are just obstructions, these concepts and ideas are what's going to keep people bound, and not be able to break free. And speaking of the four jhanas and whether or not you can hear something or whatever in the jhanas, it's only in the fourth jhana that all your senses are separated out when you enter into equanimity. In the first three jhanas, to one extent or another, you're still centrally aware. In the third jhana, that's why the third jhana is called the pleasant days abiding. You may see that description, right? That it's praised, by the wise, right? As a pleasant days abiding, because mostly you want to develop yourself and get up to the third jhana, and that's sort of the way you abide on a daily basis. But when you want to push forward and make real progress and master the different things that can be mastered there, or move on to the formless meditations, that's what you use the fourth jhana for. And that separates yourself out from your body. So that's why you're not aware of, of the body. You still have a body, but you're not aware of the bodily sensations. So anyways, these are my views. People can accept and reject as they feel, fit, but I think people need to look at this, clearly and see that there are some things people say that they're just not supported by Buddhist teaching. They're not in the suttas. Anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you. So according to what you're saying, Richard, Analio is beating a straw horse because even though it's has been believed or taught or spoken many times, it wasn't something to be found in the suttas in the first place. I want to have time to I'll go ahead and speak about the last factor in the sutta, which is the factor of the equanimity. So I'll go back to the sutta. Exit full screen. Share screen. And what fuels the arising of the awakening factor of equanimity, or when it has arisen, fully develops it. There are things that are grounds for the awakening factor of equanimity. Frequent rational application of mind to them fuels the arising of the awakening factor of equanimity, or when it has arisen, fully develops it. So now I'll point out a few things. I did look it up. Of course, this was several weeks ago that I was really immersed in this particular sutta. We've been talking about one sutta for 3 weeks, and it's so much a sutta that is worthy of this kind of attention. So equanimity, or upekkha, is a very central idea that comes up in many different kinds of teachings. It's listed as the highest of the 4 divine abidings. It's listed in a teaching about the perfect equanimity of an arhat in terms of being equanimous towards each of the 6 sense bases. It's given as a bojjhanga. Here one teacher describes the upekkha bojjhanga as a balance in the mind, having an even keel in the mind so that anything that arises is observed in a calm way without becoming either fascinated or terrified, but just able to see things as they really are. It's described in terms of energy as being not too relaxed or too tight. It's regarded as a stage in insight meditation where the mind may pass through different kinds of turmoil, but then ultimately comes to a resting pace, just calmly observing the activity of the mind. And then as a feeling, it's described as that in-between feeling, which is not pleasant or painful, which is not particularly skillful. It's just a fact of life that possibly the majority of the moments that one experiences in a day are moments of neutral feeling. Which can be through the training of the mind, one can learn to give equal attention to the 3 feelings. So you don't put an excessive amount of attention to the strongly pleasant or the strongly unpleasant feelings, but give each one equal weight. So if you give the same amount of attention to the in-between feelings, the neutral feelings, it creates a spaciousness to our experience where those pleasant and unpleasant moments are surrounded by a lot of neutral moments. The pleasant and unpleasant moments will tend to be triggering towards either desire or aversion. So it can stimulate certain reactions. The neutral moments are not stimulating those kind of automatic reactions. So if we've developed a skill of being able to notice the neutral moments, we notice many moments in which we are not being pulled or pushed by reactivity, which is, it's a wonderful way to begin to be able to choose a more healthy way of living, something that's healthy for the mind and healthy for the brain, to not be captivated by things that are pleasant and unpleasant, but instead to have that other space to go to. Then the upekkha in the jhana practice is very much related to having a neutrality towards the different kinds of Vedana. The purified upekkha of the fourth jhana is it's a sankhara, it's a state of mind. And there also is present at that moment a neutral Vedana. So the neutral Vedana or the neutral or the equanimous state of mind are both present. As far as a sankhara or a mental factor, the mind doesn't get moved. It's got a solid central point that doesn't get pushed and pulled. The mind is not unstable or pushed around by emotions. It's able to give each Dhamma that arises the same amount of weight or the same amount of attention. Nothing is so trivial that it has to be ignored, and nothing is so important that it needs to be clung to. And upekkha helps with balance. It has this quality of staying in the middle. So then the balanced mind is on the middle path. So if you think of the more, even the superficial parts of the middle path, which is neither tempted towards mortification nor towards pleasure seeking, upekkha is happily able to stay and avoid those two extremes. And then either falling into eternalism because of not being able to see the arising and cessation of phenomena, or falling into annihilationism because of, I guess you fall into eternalism because you can't see cessation, and you fall into annihilationism because you can't see the arising. But the equanimous state is able to see equally the arising and cessation of the phenomenon that's happening in here in this conditioned world where we live. So Bhikkhu Bodhi describes it. This is a wonderful Pali word, tatramajjatata. It is a Chaitasika, it's an Abhidhamma concept, and it literally could translate, there is the middleness. Tatra is the thus, or there. Majja is a middle, Majjatata is the quality of the middle. And so this is this attitude of balance, detachment, impartiality. It is able to avoid deficiency and excess, or to prevent bias. So we were talking before about how in the factors of awakening, even the sluggish mind or the lively mind, wanting to not tip over too much into having a restless mind, also becoming too activated with investigation and so on, or the sluggish mind not falling into torpor because of going too much into samatha or calmness. So this equanimity, sort of together with mindfulness, has the quality of always looking to the middle, always looking to the balance point. Even I guess you could think of it, they have a gyroscope. A gyroscope is like spinning around, and they have some of them, and it can tip over way over to one side, and then it just naturally comes back up and tips over to that side, and it just naturally comes back up. So whichever way it tips or falls, it always naturally comes back to the center, because it's got the center like a gyroscope. And so maybe you could say that this equanimity is not just something very passive, but it's sort of active, like the center point of the energy of a gyroscope that comes back, brings things back to the middle. So there's my ideas about equanimity, and I would welcome your comments or questions about that. Okay, Ren is going to tell us something, and then Ren first, and then David.
I had this the ability to notice arising and cessation of minute small moment, which is what you describe as part of having equanimity. Is that part of the tranquility meditation process, or insight meditation, or is it something that's beyond, after one has mastered both style and that's what you get to? Is it still a meditation, or is it just like a natural ongoing thing?
Observing the arising and cessation is in the refrain of the Satipatthana Sutta. So each one of the different factors or the different objects of contemplation in the Satipatthana, it always says at the end that the meditator sees the arising, sees the cessation, sees the arising and cessation regarding that phenomenon. So I would say it's very clearly part of a central part of the mindfulness practice. Yeah. Damon.
Yeah, I put in the chat, Aya, if you could address this, that even if one doesn't understand all the fine details of these different things, that it has been said that in all cases, the sutta stresses the importance of attention, and that giving attention to the right things and avoiding careless attention to the wrong things. Yes, so I wonder if you agree with that.
Yes, so the ayoniso manasikara, or the unwise attention, will be captured by the surface appearance of something. And so, like, on the surface, it seems like something is either going to be pleasant, or going to be giving a person more, making them bigger or better or safer or something like that. But then when you look more deeply and you see impermanence and so forth, you see it's actually not going to have that benefit. There's no use in reacting to it in that way. And then the yoniso manasikara especially is looking at phenomena in terms of causation and seeing their impermanent and conditioned nature. When it's something that has an aspect of that there's a danger of clinging to something, then being aware of the danger is also part of that looking on with wise attention. And so when looking with wise attention, you mentioned your note, a detached attitude. So unwise attention is conducive to attachment, to grasping and holding onto things. And then wise attention is conducive to letting go. And then having let go, having a healthy kind of a detached attitude towards persons or towards all different things that one can experience. In what you listed from the Visuddhimagga, avoiding possessive people and people who don't have equanimity, and associating with equanimous people. Yes, indeed, there are subtle ways in which one can pick up and learn, even apart from how one might explain it. It's just through their and show in a very powerful way what these qualities are. And again, as you quoted from the Visuddhimagga, resolving on equanimity, what we pay attention to becomes the inclination of the heart. If we look within ourselves and look outside at other people towards equanimity, then just being on the lookout for that quality helps us to develop and grow in that quality. Maureen, you have something to add?
I feel that actually every conscious waking moment of our lives is a time when we are meditating. This is what I'm getting out of all these bits of advice or whatever, the teachings. But really, your whole life is a meditation. If you're trying to be awakened. I don't know whether that makes sense to anybody else.
I think it makes sense. If it made sense to you, you could put a smiling emoji on your reactions, but I think it makes sense.
Because this is how you live your life. It's how to live your life as well as you possibly can while you're here. Yeah.
They say that meditation profoundly conditions how we live our lives day to day. And it's also true that if we enjoy meditation and see the value in meditation, I mean the formal cushion practice, that then there's a strong tendency to live our lives in a way which is protecting the opportunity for formal meditation. So if you get lost in reactions, it could be difficult. Then when you come down to sit for meditation, difficult to, set those aside. Or even worse, if you get lost in doing some kind of unwholesome deeds for which you later on feel remorse, that remorse could make it challenging to be able to enjoy the sitting meditation. So I kind of feel that the life is a meditation, but there are two different sides that can merge into one when we live. That which is supporting meditation is truly living the best kind of life. And so then, the meditation shows us the way to discover how to live the best kind of life. Yeah. Patipada.
Hi, Aya. Thank you. My experience is that meditation helps us live a conscious life. But when we are not present and we don't live in the present moment, and we allow feelings and emotions and memories to be the waves that toss us back and forth in this life, it's living an unconscious life. And my understanding is that meditation is an attempt to be in the present moment. So would that mean that living an unconscious life, living in the past, living in the future, would that also be called meditation? Because that's confusing to me if it is.
No, I think the conscious life is what Maureen is talking about, saying making one's life into a meditation.
I see. Okay, then I misunderstood. I did misunderstand.
Patipada, what you say about the unconscious life being tossed and turned by emotions does make me think of one way of understanding the beginning of dependent origination, describing the arising of suffering, when it says avidya pachaya sankhara, that the formations arise from ignorance. So so much of the karma that we've created that got us to this moment was created in a state where we were not aware.
Right.
Not really aware of what we're doing, not aware of the consequences, and couldn't possibly make some of the choices people make if one were really aware. And so then developing that full awareness is such a magnificent protection for then creating, a subsequent a karma that would be, an obstruction to our happiness or an obstruction to our liberation. So in that way, that full awareness, it's a safety. That they say that at different levels of awakening are not able to perform certain kinds of that the gross unwholesome deeds are impossible for a once returner, and that a fully enlightened person is unable to do unwholesome deeds, with the exception of some things that are extremely like trivial and inconsequential. So then if you were fully aware, you wouldn't be able to put your hand in the fire. You wouldn't. Why would you? You just wouldn't if you know.
You're aware of the consequences of that action.
Yeah. And so that awareness then creates a real of a security, because we're not in danger of those kinds of mistakes.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah. I think we've come to the end of our time. I appreciate everyone for your patient listening and your participation, your good practice. And we'll After this class close for a moment. Okay, so we'll come to the Jim? Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Habivademi Akato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Aya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aya.
Aya. Hello.
Yes, Patipada.
There was a package that was delivered to the monastery with my name on it.
Just 1 minute. I'm going to let Damavara speak to you.
Okay.
Padipada, we've gotten 2 packages for you.
I know, but it is something that I would like to offer to you. One is because of the weather and the heat and the dehydration is just something that you add to water to
Okay.
help replace electrolytes in the body and nutrients. Because there are monastics who are vegetarian, the bloom powder helps with digestion. And because it's something that I've found so helpful, I just wanted to offer to try to see if it would help.
Thank you so much. I've sent them to Aranya Bodhi, and I'll get a description of the items and send you an acknowledgement. Thank you, Padipada.
Oh, yeah, I hope it helps, because as we get older, the digestion can be a bit of a problem with different kinds of diet and different kinds of foods.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank
I'm
you.
sorry I didn't send a note along with it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Padipada.
Bye-bye.